Hey everyone, welcome back. We were working on 4 different builds on stream yesterday. Luckily for Equinox, some new tools let us patch all the holes on this Night Form build. You heard right, Night Form, Equinox. Named Equinox has not really had any new improvements since over a year ago, still sitting at about 160 kpm and no new toys. Of course, melee has skyrocketed recently with the Whispers in the Wall rework, pushing setups like today's into the stratosphere. We're going to be looking at a melee build, but note that this Equinox works with any melee setup you want. Melee influence is not necessary. However, it does provide some interesting interactions we will discuss later. The main improvements of this build are better energy economy and better survivability than last time, as well as easier use. For reference, I did cover Night Form Equinox a little over 1 year ago, focusing on how to achieve Gloom without Gloom for a more offensive KPM oriented build. If you're interested in how that build came to be, you can check the video at the top right. There are also some mechanics that have changed since then, however, so I would not advise copying that loadout. Also, as a quick note, this is what the icon for Night Form looks like in appearances. Your emissive determines what form you will start the mission in, which is super important if you choose to subsume over your 1, like I did, preventing you from changing forms. If you're on default colors, you will always start as Night, despite default emissives being bright blue. Normally, bright colors give you day form and dark colors give you night form. Okay, the big changes. Let's start with the bad, so that we're all on the same page. Hema. This weapon drains health on reload. Previously, it would drain health also on holster reload sources, such as synth set and tactical reload. It would calculate the missing magazine and drain the corresponding total amount of HP for every reload tick. One single tick was now matching the total HP drain of a manual reload. Instead, it now only drains health corresponding to how much of the magazine was reloaded. This means it no longer drains health equal to a full reload for every tick. Why is this a problem? Our source of slow today is the Peaceful Provocation augment instead of Gloom. This frees up our helmet slot for other options, namely Piercing Roar showcased later. The problem with Peaceful Provocation is that the slow scales up as you receive damage. The more you slow enemies and CC them, the less likely you are to receive damage. Also, the conversion of damage into additional slow is rounded down. This causes problems when your so-called received damage are your shields. If they're constantly getting chipped to 0 and unable to fully restore, then you build additional slow very slowly. That's why we use Hema, because it would let you quickly self-damage to max out your slow. Now, some might find this counterintuitive and unnecessarily complicated way to stack your slow, but don't worry, we got a new, much more straightforward tech for those that just want to focus on gameplay. Notice how I only have 2 HP. I'm self-damaging with Combat Discipline. That's my way of building my slow. Why am I not dying if I'm sitting at 2 HP with Combat Discipline active? I have quick thinking on, but we'll get into that later when discussing energy economy. This aura is how I'm able to stack my slow by just aggressively killing enemies. Here's another one. Notice my max HP is only 116. Now I'm using a Bleeding Dragon key. This is not mandatory for the build. I repeat, this is not mandatory for the build. It does make stacking my slow 4 times faster though. Why? Because this key cuts my health down by 4 times to just 25%. Combat Discipline removes a fixed amount of HP per kill. Peaceful Provocation builds a fixed percent slow per percent max HP lost. By lowering my max HP by 4 times, Combat Discipline now removes 4 times more percent HP per kill. On today's setup, it takes 32 kills to max out the slow, which takes about 15 seconds or so at slowest. Without the key, you need 128 kills, or about 1 minute. The key is not mandatory, but recommended if you want to run this build for, say, like a 2-hour survival, because if you fall off the map or die, you will have to restack the slow all over again. 15 seconds to restack is much more convenient than 1 minute. Also, for those about to type in the comments that, oh, but Toxin damage will one-shot you with 2 HP. Now, this is a shield gate build. Even if I had no key on with max HP, that's only 465 with no bonus armor or adaptation. That will one-shot you regardless. Basically, of course, don't use this kind of build against infested, and obviously don't walk into Noxes if you can't stun them or kill them from afar. That's why your guns are free on this build, to shoot them from afar if needed. Now that we know how I reliably stack my slow, let's look at my helmet choice. Roar. Why Roar? Well, Peaceful Provocation caps out at 80% slow, Roar has an augment called Piercing Roar that knocks enemies down and applies puncture procs, which gives 25% additional flat crit chance. More importantly, this knockdown animation is slowed by our 80%, or takes 5 times longer to run out. Super good crowd control because both Piercing Roar and Peaceful Provocation hit through walls. Of course, Roar also brings spicy damage buffs in the form of Universal Faction bonus. Today's setup is all about status, which double dips faction bonuses, so this is a huge plus. Thus, we get super crowd control, extra crit, double dip faction buff, slows, and infinite shield regen. Wait, infinite shield regen? Let's look at that Equinox build. Note that you do not need these 2 energy max Archon Shards, they're there from when I was testing. I would advise though 2 casting speed shards if you're not on Madarai. This setup is a shield gating build that sources its survivability from your 4, instead of the old build last year that relies on your 1. The old build would restore all shields with a single cast of Roar. Because of the Decay Dragon Key changes, I need to use a slot for catalyzing shields now to get the same low shield count for 74. For Roar to restore all shields, I need to use Brief Respite. However, I can't use Brief Respite now because the Hema changes meant I needed a new way to self-damage, being Combat Discipline. Therefore, since I can't make Roar restore all shields in one cast, I turn towards making your 4 strong enough to restore all shields in one kill. This is where the last 3 months of new tools come in. Precision Intensify was added to the game, which grants 90 strength to only your 4th ability. I need 296 strength to restore 74 shields with 1 kill while my 4 is active. Peaceful Provocation, my 3rd ability augment, caps out its 80% slow at 200 strength. Therefore, if I can reach 200 strength from my entire loadout, then Precision Intensify can get me close enough to 296 for my 4th ability. There are a couple of ways to achieve this. Today's build is melee centric on hack and slash, so I did not go Naramon. Because Peaceful Provocation and Mend are both channeling abilities, I opted for Madarai to snapshot to Sling Strength plus 40% buff into them. Therefore, I don't have 100 strength. I actually have plus 60% from Bolt Augmented, and plus 40% from Madarai, which is enough for 200 on Peaceful Provocation, while reaching 290 for Mend with Precision Intensify. Also, remember that Shield Gate is no longer all or nothing as of the shield rework half a year ago. 290 strength will still restore 72 shields, which is still a 1.29 seconds shield gate with catalyzing shield. Alternatively, without Madarai, the Power Drain Parazon mod grants plus 50% strength to your next ability cast after Mercy Killing, which can be done against Eximus and heavy units, freeing up your focus school. About a year ago, Eximus and heavy units were adjusted to start spawning after 1 minute into survival instead of 5 minutes, therefore just spam kills to start building Molt Augmented. Then, once these guys start spawning, go stab one. A fully stacked Molt Augmented plus Power Drain is 210 strength. And Precision Intensify brings you to 300, making Mend restore 75 shields per kill. I opted for only 1 ranged mod this time, and it doesn't matter if you use Augur Reach or Stretch. However, if you did not bring a pistol with Augur mods, I would recommend Augur Reach, so that you can regenerate some shields when you cast Roar. This is most useful for when shields break since it will reset your partial gate. Normally I wouldn't want to reset my gate with a partial regen, but our full shield gate is only 1.33 seconds, and if you cast Roar, you're crowd controlling everything through walls. The exception are Eximus, but they're quite easy to kill on this build, and if they hit you again, then your second quick cast Roar is going to be the one that actually restores some shields from burning energy, which I'll get into later. If you intend to take this build into Endurance, I would recommend replacing the 1 range mod with Rolling Guard instead, as this build currently has no way to deal with persistent status effects like Heat, Electric, or Slash from Eximus and Acolytes. It would cut your slow radius to just 16 meters instead of 20, which is even smaller than that of Melee Influence, but it's probably your best option for Endurance. The low duration of this build is not a problem for 2 reasons. Roar is your crowd control, which will already be casted about once every 10 seconds to knock everything down. Casting speed is huge on this build, and if not on Madarai, I would strongly recommend 2 casting speed shards. Channeling ability drain is also calculated from both efficiency and duration, and actually uses uncapped efficiency stats. This build actually has 190 efficiency, which requires at least 40 duration to maintain minimum possible drain at 25% cost. You see that 0.88 and 0.75 drain per second on my 4 and 3? Yep, that's the 25% channel cost. My original Equinox build had 1.47 and 1.25 drain per second, and Roar was also your main CC at only 160 efficiency, costing 30 a pop. That build needed Equilibrium. This build actually skips Equilibrium, because not only are my channel abilities cheaper now, but Roar is now also free. This is because we're bringing Diriga as our auto primer for condition overload with our coil. But this also means Diriga activates Mystic Bond every few seconds for a free ability cast. Since the only ability we actively cast is Roar once every 10 seconds, it will cost 0 energy to do so unless I double cast it in quick succession as a panic button or to restore shields. This new Equinox build only drains 98 energy a minute from you 3 and 4. Roar would have cost an extra 113 a minute, so we cut out over half of our energy expenses this way. My old build that needed Equilibrium? Assuming Roar casts once every 10 seconds, it costs 343 energy as a whole per minute. We cut 343 down to just 98. Let that sink in. That's why we no longer need Equilibrium. Energize alone is enough to upkeep our energy costs and leave margin for error. You don't even need the energy max Archon Shards I was testing with, since my energy never dipped below 200 when testing. Also, yes, I kept there too, because it gives you the option to sleep problematic enemies if you really need to. Now for your guns, I don't care what you bring. Hema is here as a reminder that the Hema strat no longer works. If you want a full explanation, click the Hema timestamp in the description or pinned where I discussed it earlier. Consider bringing Amalgam Serration for extra sprint speed in general for melee, and Dexterity Arcanes for combo duration. Perhaps bring a weapon that can deal with violence or toxin enemies from a distance, since neither of those you really want to get within melee range, unless you can take them out really quickly. Your melee should be status based. This allows your main source of DPS to double dip Roar, which reaches 200% easily on this build for 1.6 times more damage. The double dip turns this into 2.56 times more damage on dots specifically. I chose Gunsen because of forward melee freedom, and I'm just comfortable with using it as it has 0 slowdown at all on an extremely good stance with good multipliers on a good melee. I really couldn't care less if you use a dagger with Argonax, some slam spam like Titron, or some other normal slash melee like Cronin or Praetos for parkour, etc. What's important is that your main DPS includes a lot of status, of which even Titron force procs electric on survivors. So let's look at that sample Gunsen build. This is a melee influenced Gunsen. It's cookie cutter with attack, speed, range, condition overload, and banes. Then instead of staying pure slash with Gladiator Might, we replace it with Shocking Touch so we can proc influence in a 20 meter AoE. The result? Slash is still 47% weight and butchers anything you wail on specifically even if it doesn't spread. Electric is also 47% weight and spreads to destroy all trash fodder nearby. More importantly, Men triggers off all kills within radius of your 4, but since we're melee-centric, this should be easy to trigger. It's also the reason why we use one ranged mod for 2-hour Steel Path runs instead of rolling guard. As I said, no, you don't even need melee influence for this kind of setup because a single kill will restore all your shields. Use the melees you want with the arcanes you want. This Equinox allows you to use anything. I just want to showcase what I used in the footage. Okay? Okay. Hope that is clear. Alright, let's look at our companion. We picked Diriga because it can auto-prime for us without actually needing to use a pistol primer. This scales condition overload up very easily with constant Arcoil procs. This preset normally has a 2-second cooldown, which is already pretty fast, but Manifold Bond activations can easily cut this down to 0, causing Arcoil triggers every 0.5 seconds to 1 second when you land kills. Arcoil inherits the statuses coming from Manifold Bond, which itself carries elements from your Sentinel weapon. I chose Viral Heat and Radiation for my Hellstrom. Now I don't really care what you pick, just bring at least Viral to buff your damage. Our Sentinel does not need to shoot since its main purpose is just prime statuses via Arcoil, but I would recommend still bringing Assault mode for what I'll explain in a second. This will also trigger Synth Deconstruct for constant health orb drops. 25% of the enemies you melee will heal you. This precept also does other things. Every Arcoil proc counts towards the 5 stacks needed for Mystic Bond to give you a free ability cast charge. 5 stacks takes only a few seconds, and even faster because even target switching via Assault mode counts as an ability usage. Now this occurs whenever you kill a target Diriga was aiming at, so that piercing roar that you cast once every 10 seconds? Yeah, it's completely free and costs 0 energy so long as you wait a few seconds before casting again. Prime Regen and Guardian alongside Vacuum are obvious. Radar is needed because we kill so much we want to focus on highest enemy density. This build benchmarks at around 140 kpm, and also, yes, Electropulse still activates that arcane. To use this build, you go into mission and activate Matter Ice strength buffs if you're using them. Then activate your 3 and 4. Find enemies in Caster 1. Happy melee killing. Once you hit 250 kills, reproc Madarai or stab a heavy unit or X-Mess with your Parazon. Now reactivate your 4 for 290 or 300 scaling to reset all your shields on every kill. Bonus points to melee influence, letting you wail on an Acolyte while killing things nearby to restore more shields even if the Acolyte removes them, or to kill nearby enemies directly and have the Acolyte die by proxy off of redirected influence dots. Also, reactivate your 3 with Madarai or Parazon stabs active so you can hit 80% slow, since loading in with Madarai active only grants 140 strength, which would normally cap out at 56% slow instead of your desired 80. Quick thinking will keep you alive, don't worry about sitting on 2 HP, you heal faster than you lose energy. You will get health back often enough from health orbs, dropping all over the place from Synth Deconstruct easily to lose enough health for capping out peaceful provocation. Cheers! If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed, I'm trying my best to get you new information out always as soon as possible like I've been doing with the Whispers in the Wall update. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. You don't miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this video, thank you all for watching and see you all next time.